I saw the policemen running out of a police station for that police station to be abandoned and taken over, I've never seen anything so horrible and stupid in my life. I've never seen anything so bad. And then I see them trying to justify it. Look, they've got to be tough. They've got to be smart. We have our military ready, willing, and able if they ever want to call our military. But we can have troops in the ground very quickly if they ever want our military. They're using their National Guard right now. As you know, I guess, as you probably know, they have their National Guard out. We can have our military there very quickly. They've got to be tough. They've got to be strong. They've got to be respected. Because these people, it's Antifa, it's a lot of radical left bad people. And they've got to be taught that you can't do this. So I'm going now to watch a great launch, and we'll see how we do.
On this episode of Just Informed Talk, we're going to take a look at the latest new Q post as cities across the country are on fire, under siege by terrorists, domestic terrorists, and Q asks a very important question. Is this an open insurrection that is being launched by the shadow government against President Trump, using these paid thugs and terrorists to burn down cities, loot stores, and hurt protesters who are trying to peacefully protest? We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more. You guys are going to want to stick around and check it out. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Just Informed Talk. I'm your host, Craig. You guys know the drill. I say thanks. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't done it yet. Helps channel out big time. Make sure you hit the bell and then select all too after you do that, so you get notified as soon as all of these videos get posted. Today, we're picking up right where we left off. We have a lot of information to cover, but we left off at Q post 4349, picking up at 4350, and we have a lot to cover here. As you guys probably know, if you've turned on any news station today at all, you'll see major cities across the United States under siege by domestic terrorists calling themselves protesters, who are getting covered for by the fake news, who are misreporting what is happening. We're going to talk about what's really happening out in the streets, and Q gives us insight into not only what's going to be done behind the scenes coming forward or going into the next short while, but what we can expect overall. So we're going to talk about all of that. Before we do, you can help out the channel by checking out this great product if you haven't yet. It's Brave Browser. Download it for free using the link in the description. Brave Browser, it's a great product, blocks the ads, works on your laptop, desktop, all your devices, replaces your internet browser, whichever one you're using, and it's a better product. So download it, install it, and run it for free today using the link in the description. All right, so today we're going to start where we left off. We left off at 4349, picking up at 4350, and it puts us right here with this Office of the Director of National Intelligence statement put out by John Ratcliffe, the new Director of National Intelligence, right? And this is about the declassification, which, if you guys haven't noticed, this whole rioting that's happening across the country and organized terrorist activity is exactly what it is, by the way. But that's what's happening across the country, coincides perfectly with what happened with General Flynn and the Kislyak conversation between the Russian ambassador, Sergei Kislyak, and General Flynn, which actually is showing now that there was no coordination. There was no talk about sanctions. Now, of course, we're just getting the transcript, meaning not the actual audio recordings, but we're just getting a written transcript of what was said. But it seems that, again, there is nothing there that shows General Flynn was doing anything unsavory with Kislyak, yet this was their excuse to go spy on Trump's incoming national security advisor, and this just brings the whole house of cards down. So, yes, they've activated their assets. These Soros-backed terrorist groups like Antifa and others, you know, it seems, according to the FBI's own, reports, these people are engaged in domestic terrorist activities, right? So, and President Trump's heavily weighing declaring them a terrorist group. And in my opinion, a group like Antifa is terrorist. A group like MS-13 are terrorists, because these people are violent and they're radical and they're extremists. And that is not what this country needs, right? We need debate. We need peaceful protest, and they are ruining that. But let's read the statement from John Ratcliffe as I digress. It says, as I stated throughout the confirmation progress, transparency is vital to allowing American people to have confidence in the intelligence community. As a director of national intelligence, it's my obligation to review declassification requests with the overarching priority of protecting sources and methods while also providing transparency whenever possible. Accordingly, today, the Office of Director of National Intelligence declassified transcripts concerning Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. So yes, we do have those transcripts now. The Anons have been poring over them. And like I said, the only thing that's come out of those is that General Flynn, again, did nothing wrong. And you have people like Adam Schiff now trying to spin it to say, oh, well, they didn't take Russia hacking seriously. Just having nothing to do with the original implications that were being made by these people about President Trump and others being Russian assets, right? He now has switched to, oh, well, they weren't condemning on the private phone call the hacking that was happening. Yeah, it's really bad what's happening here, and Q's pointing us to that just to look at it, and it's definitely worth understanding what's happening in that sense. The next one is a Catherine Herridge tweet, and Q says it's worth following the declassified designations. Q. Well, what's it referring to? It's giving us a link to Catherine Herridge's main Twitter account where you can actually see that she's continuing to pore over these documents and show that there was nothing there. But they won't report on this, and as soon as they do have to report on it because it's here and prominent and clear, they've conveniently now started these massive riots that they call protests and that they, have orchestrated through race baiting and fake news propaganda. And yes, a man lost his life, but we should honor his memory, as President Trump said, and try to have justice for him, not go out and destroy entire cities. That's insanity. But that's the times that we live in, and it's worth following what's going to be coming out with the rest of the declassification. But yeah, we knew this was coming too. Q said they would pull out all the stops once we started declassifying this information because this information exposes their corruption. And then when they are exposed, they won't be able to serve their puppet masters like George Soros. So they have no other choice than to ignite these race wars and these riots. And, in a lot of cases, look, I'm not saying there aren't people who are upset, who are protesting peacefully. I'm saying that Antifa seems to be going from city to city, engaging in violent domestic terrorism. And you have the fake news standing out there with microphones saying, yeah, everyone out here is peaceful while the buildings are burning down behind them. Yeah, it's insanity where we've come. But Q points us next to President Trump's tweet from July of 2019, where he says, consideration is being given to declaring Antifa the gutless radical left whack jobs who go around hitting only non-fighters people over the heads with baseball bats, a major organization of terror, along with MS-13 and others, would make it easier for police to do their job. And of course, then Q gives us this link to this counterinsurgency guide from 2009, right? Signed off on by the Bush administration, put into effect by the Obama administration, seemingly to embed an insurgency in this government, right? Which now we are actually having to counter. I mean, and you see it. If you don't believe me, there are people lighting buildings on fire. They're looting stores. They're inciting violence against people based on their race. I don't even know what to say. I just think a lot of these people, I was talking with people about this before, and, what it is this, right? You have a generation of kids who've been robbed, basically. They've been brainwashed and propagandized into hating not only the government and authority, but then hating themselves in a lot of ways, and basically living lives that keep them oppressed and in abject poverty because they're conditioned and brainwashed to do it. I mean, listen to the music, watch the movies, understand the culture. It's a death culture that they live in. So when you see them glorifying things like these movies out there like The Purge, and they have Grand Theft Auto video games where they glorify doing it, they reset their brains, they rewire their brains, right, to get that serotonin, that boost of dopamine or whatever it is through the execution of these actions. And their brains are wired and trained. And nobody wants to talk about the video games. Nobody wants to talk about the violent music in hip hop culture and in rock music in a lot of ways, the metal stuff. Nobody wants to talk about the nihilistic, sect of society that's living in a downward spiral on a regular basis. But if you take those same people who are being bombarded by that every day, then you put them under house arrest during a pandemic, then you take away their job, because most of these people, I would say, who are rioting right now were probably employed in the service industry, or one of the industries that was affected by this pandemic shutdown. Then you have major organizations that are backed by Soros and others who are funding this criminal activity, right, and condoning it, using the Marxist literature and the anti-fascist propaganda tools to brainwash these kids into being violent extremists. And you wonder why we're literally engaged in a counterinsurgency right now against an insurgency that was embedded in our country by radical leaders who were corrupt and criminal, who sold us out. They degraded the trust in those institutions to the point now where it's going to be a trying time going forward. Let's just put it that way. Q says irregular warfare, and I know warfare spelt wrong, but Q said he was on the move, or they were on the move, and it wasn't intentional. Insurgency, and it says insurgency is the organized use of subversion and violence to seize, nullify, or challenge political control of a region. As such, it is primarily a political struggle in which both sides used armed force to create space for their political, economic, and influence activities to be effective. Insurgency is not always conducted by a single group with a centralized military-style command structure, but may involve a complex matrix of different actors with various aims, loosely connected in dynamic and non-hierarchical networks. To be successful, insurgencies require charismatic leadership, supporters, recruits, supplies, safe havens, and funding, often from illicit activities. They only need the active support of a few enabling individuals, but the passive acquiescence of a large portion of the contested population will give a higher probability of success. This is best achieved when the political cause of the insurgency has strong appeal, manipulating religious, tribal, or local identity to exploit common societal grievances or needs. Insurgents seek to regain control of populations through a combination of persuasion, subversion, and coercion, while using guerrilla tactics to offset the strengths of government security forces. Their intent is usually to protract the struggle, exhaust the government, and win sufficient popular support to force capitulation or political accommodation. Consequently, insurgencies evolve through a series of stages through the progression and outcome, or though the progression and outcome will be different in almost every case. Locations, and this is Q going on, cities of loss of control, Democrat controlled, defined stand down, safe haven order, coordination of organized and funded groups in Democrat controlled safe haven cities across the U.S., pre-knowledge to groups. Then it gives these 3 articles right here talking about representatives in Congress who are asking the FBI to add Antifa to the list of extremist ideologies. And of course here, Fitzpatrick out of the House in Pennsylvania talking about condemning Antifa and their political violence. And of course, this Hill report about 2 Republican senators introducing a resolution to label Antifa as domestic terrorists, right? And I'll leave links to those if you want to read through them. It says, thank you for playing. Have a nice day. Q. So that's it. You know, we're going to label these people domestic terrorists because that's what they're doing. There has to be a line you draw where you say you can either have a civil society with laws and order, or you have violent people, you know, psychopaths, sociopaths running around, lighting fires, breaking windows, looting stores, beating people up who they disagree with. Is that the society you want to live in? That's what the left and these liberal, Democrat-run cities are offering. And they're using this to manipulate the system, right? It's all a pretext for them to take control and more power. If you go in, you start smashing everything up, then, of course, guess who's coming in after you to take over and to come down with an iron fist? It's going to be those Democrat governors. Just like they did with this pandemic. Remember? The first, it was like, oh, well, no big deal. Let's go to Chinatown. Me and Nancy Pelosi, we're going to hug everyone and we're going to make sure the disease spreads really well. And then we set the authoritarian trap to lock you in your house, put you under house arrest, to take your job away and make you a ward of the state so that you're dependent on a paycheck from the government every 2 weeks instead of going out and working and having freedom and liberty. That's what this is, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just giving you the full scope of what's going to happen. They're going to use this domestic violence, or domestic terrorist activity, which we can only say is funded by the same political machine that funds this liberal left agenda. And then they're going to take that and use it as the pretext to come in and start, marshaling law, becoming authoritarians even further, and enforcing mail-in voting, forcing the fraudulent stealing of elections, coercing the population into, complete and total submission to their radical agenda. This is it. And then again, the next one here, Q says there was a typo with the warfare, with the E was a misspelling, unintentional, and that they were on the move. Okay. The next one here compares the anti-fascist action flag to the anti-fascist action flag, which is the same thing, right? The paramilitary wing from 1933 of the Communist Party in Germany is the same as the paramilitary wing of the Democrat Party today. Great. Perfect. We saw how well that ended in Russia, right? Not so well. And it didn't end too well in Germany either, right? Because then you had the rise of the fascists. And look, you could say what you want right now. America is a bastion of liberty and freedom that the whole world looks to. And we're leading the world economically and by every standard you could measure. So our enemies devised a plan to destroy us from within, and they're enacting it right now. Mark my words on that. They can shut down our speech. They can do whatever they want, but they'll never shut down the will of the American people to stand against this injustice, right? It says anti-American, domestic terrorists, organized fascists, extreme radicals, violent POTUS action coming, Homeland Security, FBI, DOJ action coming, investigations may lead to Democrat foreign support targets. Q. Well, yeah. Guess what? All these people waging these little battles in the cities, all the organizers are being monitored very closely. I would say that the FBI and other organizations, intelligence organizations, are looking very carefully at the activities that are happening right now and where that information, where that funding is coming from. Because a lot of our intelligence agencies, as you know, can use their ability to spy on foreign interferers, foreign meddlers in our country, right? So I think that those people are being watched very closely by the right law organizations. Legally and lawfully, of course, unlike the previous administration. So I heard it may lead to more arrests. I've heard that what they're going to do is they're going to find the heads of all these Antifa sects, and once they are declared domestic terrorists, then that gives it a whole nother set of law or rules of engagement, or whatever you want to call that, if you will, with dealing with that. And it's what's necessary. That seems to be where we've come to. And the whole reasoning behind this, as Q says here, they want you divided. They want race wars. They want class wars. They want religious wars. They want political wars. For God and country, we have to learn about that, stay strong, and stay together. I've been saying this on Twitter. I've been saying this here. Look, this is all about dividing us. It's all about causing a war to destroy us from within, because they can't destroy us from the outside in. We're too powerful. But a lot of our adversaries across the globe understand that they can wage war against us without firing a single shot. And that's where we're at, ladies and gentlemen. And they're using the epitome of useful idiots in Antifa to execute their agenda. The next one here is this Twitter post that Q gives us, where it shows that there is an army of volunteers in Minneapolis helping neighbors clean up business damage. And look, this is what people really want to do ultimately. The real people who aren't Antifa domestic terrorist thugs, those people want to live peacefully together, right? To exercise our freedom and liberty. They don't want to live in this world where it's Mad Max and it's basically the laws of the jungle at that point. So, look, Q says humanity at its finest. Yes, that's what we want. Again, here's another one. These men are protecting an officer that was separated from his team, was outnumbered and in danger. This made me cry. I think they actually used the post from in the Matrix there. But yeah, look, there's a police officer, and these men obviously came together to help protect him because he didn't do anything wrong. He's just out there trying to help police the streets, and he got separated. But this is what we really should be doing. And it's really heartwarming to see, right? Gives you a little bit of hope, right? That's the way I look at it. The Daily Caller here with AG Barr's statement saying in many places it appears the violence is planned, organized, and driven by anarchic left extremist groups, far left extremist groups using Antifa-like tactics, right? And that's the clip. So I just read you the important part. But yeah, that's worth remembering. And Q says, be vigilant. That's what we're up against. And it's true. The next one here is this NBC News article talking about the FBI's top lawyer, Dana Puente, was ousted amid Fox News criticism for role in Flynn investigation. Oh, so it's Fox News' fault, not, just being a corrupt, terrible attorney who should resign immediately for being ineffective at your job and allowing the largest hoax scam to ever occur against the American people and to allow a coup to go on in the shadows against a duly elected president. Thanks, Dana. Great work. You really did a great job over the FBI. Not going to be sad to see you leave. Q says update the list. All right. The Insurrection Act of 1807, quote, Q says in the brackets here, saying determination that the various state and local authorities are not up to the task of responding to the growing unrest. And then it says call the ball, Q. Now, call the ball, I think is a reference back to what Q said before about the ILS, which is a reference to the landing system that would be used, for a jet that's landing on its approach. This call the ball, I think, is a reference to an aircraft carrier and the navigation system that they use to land their jets on the aircraft carrier. So, yeah, I think that we have the Army, the Navy, Marines, whoever landing in to take care of this because that's all there is to it. And then finally here, Q gives us this tweet to look at where it shows this being the violence as what's happening in Chicago right now. And look at this. I mean, you have police officers here being dragged away by angry crowds, beating them over the head. You have an officer here being dragged away by a crowd of, if it were me and I was armed and I was a police officer and I had a wild mob of people grabbing me and trying to pull me into the crowd, I don't know. I think that's the point at which you could be able to use some sort of lethal protection of yourself, right? This is how society crumbles. If you allow criminal mobs to roam the streets, beating up anyone and everyone they see fit. This is insanity. And it's got to end. And that's why I'm praying every day for us together. But Q points us to this President Trump quote saying, every citizen in every community has the right to be safe in their workplace, safe in their homes, and safe on our city streets. This is the sacred right of all Americans that I am totally determined to defend. Q says, on the ready, God save America, Q. Yeah, and I couldn't agree more because this is a very dangerous point that we've come to as a society, and we really need to wake up. But we're going to talk about that at the end here in the God's Grace is Greater segment. So you guys might want to stick around for that, about, how we overcome this and what to be aware of. Who are those who are going to try to create this kind of division inside of our country? And it's really an appropriate verse that we're going to talk about here. But with that, that's pretty much it. I just want to give you an update on the latest Q post. I hit the refresh button here, and that's the latest one. So that's where we're going to go ahead and leave it. A few more things before we go. You guys come watch these videos, share them on your social media, get the word out that way. It helps me out big time. Also, I'm over here on Twitter, still at 65,842 now followers. So the number just stays the same. It actually unfollowed me from somebody, and I can't figure out who yet. But look, Twitter is an SJW virtue signaling bastion of just these liberal idiots, the same ones who are likely behind a lot of this Antifa organized resistance, or whatever you want to call it. So that's what we're up against here. So if you want to come follow me over here, you can. I'm also at informed_news on Twitter, but I'm also on Parler now at Just Informed Talk on Parler. It's an interesting website. I'm starting to get used to it. So it's good. We already have 384 people over here following. So if you want to come over and give me a follow, that's a cool place to find me. I'll try to post content over there regularly. Also, I have justinformednews.com, the official website for Just Informed Talk, BITCHUTE.com, The /JustInformedTalk is the backup channel. And you can contribute if you want financially through Patreon. It's a crowdfunding website, patreon.com/JustInformedTalk. Monthly donation. You guys help create content on this channel. Trust me, they've done everything they can to put this channel out of business, but you guys keep it alive. So thank you for that. Also, I have a GoFundMe set up. If you want to make a one-time or anonymous donation, links to everything will be in the description below. Now, before we go, we do a segment at the end of each one of these episodes called God's Grace is Greater, where we talk about God's grace and how it is truly greater. But today, I want to share a very specific verse out of the book of Romans, chapter 16, verse 17 through 18. And it talks about a warning that is being given to us about divisive people. And I'm just thinking about the times we live in today, right? Everybody's trying to divide us. They want us in race wars and class wars and religious wars. But what we need to remind ourselves is that we can come together against this if we recognize it for what it is, right? So here are the words I want to share, and then we'll talk about it. It says, "Now I implore you, brothers, watch out for those who cause dissensions and pitfalls contrary to the doctrine you have learned. Avoid them, for such people do not serve our Lord Christ, but their own appetites. And by smooth talk and flattering words, they deceive the hearts of the unsuspecting." Now, doesn't that sound pretty familiar, like what we're up against today? I know it does to me, and when I read those words, I remind myself that I have to refocus on what's most important. I have to refocus on the things that bring us together and unite us as opposed to what divides us. Those who are out there use their smooth talk, as it says here, and flattering words to deceive these poor young souls into following this ideology that leads them to death and destruction. But we can help bring those kind of people to light and everlasting life, because we know of the sacrifice that was made on the cross for our sins by Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. And if we can share that with others, if we can bring that to the forefront of everyone's conversation in this world and in these times, then we can change the course of history, because God is that powerful. All you have to do is open your heart, say a prayer, and ask God to give you the guidance that you need to follow that trajectory to help others. So that's my advice to you, and I hope you guys take it and share it with your family and friends and loved ones. But that's where I'm going to go ahead and leave it. Again, guys, come here and hit the subscribe button if you haven't, and hit it, punch it, tap it, headbutt it, whatever. Hit the like button if you guys like this content and want to see me make more. That's it for me, though. Thanks for watching this episode of Just Informed Talk. My name is Craig. Godspeed, and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.